Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to be taking a look at our Sun and Rising sign horoscopes for the month of April 2022. I have two transits this month that I am looking at for all 12 signs. One is maybe arguably the transit of the year, and that's Jupiter's conjunction with Neptune in Pisces, which happens on April 12th. And the second is a solar eclipse in Taurus, pretty closely engaged with the planet Uranus in Taurus. That's April 30th. So let me give you a look at these on the real-time clock, and then we'll go through each of our 12 signs for the month. And then don't forget, as always, if you want a treatment of the entire month on the whole, look at my monthly overview of the astrology of April. And then as the month goes on, we typically break down all of the individual transits in those videos and sometimes do more transit horoscope videos as the month goes on. So I like to sort of pick the highlights for this video and keep it succinct and straight to the heart of what I think will really show up for each sign rather than bombarding you with, 20 or 30 things. So here is the conjunction of Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. That is April 12th. It's a big conjunction, maybe the most exciting transit of the year from my standpoint. As I did my research, I sort of went, yeah, that one looks like it's going to be hard to beat in terms of there's no other transit that in my mind comes close to that one. So it's an exciting month of April. Anyway, April 30th, you can see here is the new moon forming in proximity with the north node of the moon and with Uranus. This is a partial solar eclipse that will be taking place on April 30th, closely configured to the planet Uranus. So those are the two transits we're going to look at for every single sign and give you a sense of what to expect. Remember, when I'm talking about Jupiter and Neptune, it's April 12th. When I'm talking about the eclipse, it's April 30th. Sort of breaking the month into two parts. Everything the first half of the month is really building toward the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Everything toward the end of the month is moving toward the solar eclipse. So let's start with Aries on the ascendant. If you are an Aries rising, and that is what I recommend reading for, is your rising sign, because that's going to give you a whole sign correspondence to your birth chart, which is very accurate. So here we have the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, and I'm just going to go back in time for all of these signs to that conjunction. I want to highlight that one actually. So let me just move this around just a little bit. And we'll put Aries on the ascendant. Here we go. So here's the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in your 12th house. So if you're an Aries, the interesting thing about this is that I could see it going one of two ways. Jupiter-Neptune in the 12th might be the definition of falling into some kind of illusion or delusion, some kind of fantasy that is completely ungrounded and that will get you into trouble. That's the nature of the 12th house. Jupiter-Neptune could fill you with a lot of enthusiasm about something that is going to take you down, so it's, be careful of that. That would be the beware. But I think the promising thing here is that Jupiter-Neptune in the 12th house, a place associated with suffering and sorrows, with loss, often with health problems, kind of a place that's associated with the dark night of the soul. Jupiter-Neptune here could be something really uplifting. Could there be some kind of silver lining that's coming through during a dark season in your life? Could there be a time of healing, a feeling of redemption, renewed faith, despite having gone through a turbulent or uncertain period? I think that's the promise of this transit. If you have Aries rising, which places Jupiter-Neptune into your 12th. Now, alongside of that, on April 30th, the solar eclipse will end up landing in your second house. And I'm not going to move the chart around. I just kind of highlight that second house. The solar eclipse configured with Uranus will happen in your second house on April 30th. On that day, it's not that something in particular will happen. Typically, eclipses play out over a couple of months. We have recurring eclipses again in October, November in the relative same places of the chart. So, but with a Uranian new moon solar eclipse, the feeling of beginnings, inceptions, things, a seed that's being planted, some breaking of the mold around money, finances, business, resources, anything that you consider to be a close ally or asset of you and an intimate or invaluable resource. There could be some significant changes happening around those resources, especially with the idea of some new development or some new resource breaking the mold a little bit, getting inventive, going outside of the box, maybe with business or money. So those are the themes that come to my mind for Aries rising with the two major transits of the month. Let's go forward to Taurus rising. Go forward and we see that Jupiter, for Taurus risings, Jupiter and Neptune are in the 11th house, a place of allies, friends, groups and communities, a place that is often associated with anyone or anything that helps us further our ambitions, especially professional ambitions or worldly social ambitions, things that place us out in the world somewhere. Jupiter Neptune here suggests some kind of wonderful, enchanted connection with other people, some kind of project or community collaboration. It speaks to faith and community, or maybe art and community, with an exalted Venus also there at the same time in the month of April. Whatever it is, it looks like fertile and promising and hopeful and redemptive. Now, one thing you'd want to be careful of is, do I, am I getting involved with something that's too good to be true, or something that it's sparkly but may not be as substantive as it appears? Always a potential with Jupiter and Neptune, but otherwise something fertile and rich growing in the house of community, friends, groups, allies, with that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, one of the bigger events of the years for all of us. So I would anticipate this being a pretty good time overall. I'm a Taurus rising, for example, and we are working on a community project that will probably be taking off in April. So we'll also be building a community herb garden that will be starting in April. So there's a lot of like that in my own chart as a Taurus. Anyway, then on April 30th, there's a solar eclipse in the first house in Taurus, closely configured with Uranus. How are you changing your body, your appearance, your diet, your workout routine, anything pertaining to health, vitality, physical appearance? You could be breaking the mold or changing something about yourself, something like that. So the idea of personal revolution, a revolution of character, psychology, appearance, body and vitality, or the desire to start something new, to get a fresh start. It's a very, it has the feeling behind it of inception, right? So starting something new, and with regard to character and core identity or physical health and body that come to mind right away. Okay, so let's go forward to Gemini rising. If you're a Gemini rising, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction takes place in your 10th house. So you're seeing this very fertile, expansive energy, very imaginative, inspiring, maybe collaborative energy around the career house. So what's growing there? What fertile waters are appearing in the career house right now that are acting as a fertilizer? It's like a miracle grow. This Jupiter Neptune has this ability to expand whatever it touches and to make it to grow it and to make things, especially things that feel almost too good to be true at times. Sometimes, of course, they are too good to be true. So maybe a little bit of the difference between fantasy and reality when it comes to your career, something to keep in mind this month. But boy, with the exalted Venus there, Jupiter, Neptune conjunction there, fame, glamour, promotion, success, growth, collaboration, visions and inspiration, renewal of faith. They're very good qualities overall in the career house. So I'm going to stay more positive than anything and just say, hey, I hope this is great. I hope you have a great time and that you don't, just don't get involved in anything that's completely delusional. And I think that's the advice for everybody this month. But why? I feel like that part of it is being sort of oversold. Like it's like, oh, be careful. Like, as soon as you put Jupiter and Neptune together, it automatically means you're going to fall into some kind of Ponzi scheme or something. And I don't think that's the case. I genuinely think this is going to be a pretty good transit for a lot of people. So enjoy it in your career house for Geminis. Now, the eclipse on April 30th, little different story. That one's happening in your 12th house with Uranus. It has the feeling to me of like indulgence and rebelliousness as themes, potentially. Anything earthy, sensual, sort of pagan and animistic, anything feminine and like earthy and Venusian, But something that's taking hold and maybe grabbing grabbing you in the unconscious way, where we talk about the planets as grahas or grabbers, something that is seizing consciousness and taking over and saying, this form of luxury, this indulgence, this desire, this thing that I want, right? Very Venusian. I don't care what it costs. I don't care who gets hurt. I don't care if I break the mold or the rules. So I'd be careful of a little bit of a reckless self-indulgence quality to the eclipse on April 30th. But also, on the other hand, there's something about this that if there's any tendency in your life as a Gemini rising, based on the configurations of your chart, to repress in an unhealthy way, to repress body, desire, pleasure, this could also be something that's helping open you up or loosen up or let go of unhealthy inhibitions or something like that. So those are some of the things that come to mind for Gemini risings. All right, let's move this forward to Cancer rising. So if we put Cancer rising on the ascendant, then Jupiter and Neptune are conjoining in your 9th house. And that is the place of the higher mind, religion, spirituality, and mysticism, education, universities, travel, foreign countries, the legal system. I could see, especially Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces in a feminine sign, I wonder about faith and community. I wonder about religious and spiritual topics, gurus and teachers. I wonder about women and the goddess, mystical experiences, pilgrimage, or some kind of a retreat you're taking for spiritual health and renewal. I think about the deepening or expanding of faith and beliefs. So I love the look and feel of this Jupiter-Neptune dynamic in your 9th house for the sake of growing and expanding spirituality, emotional intelligence and the higher mind, your beliefs, learning, and maybe even the sense of, something miraculous coming into your life, some restoral or renewal. For example, maybe you've been without religious or spiritual community since COVID, and maybe some of that starts coming back. But this is inspiring and uplifting in the area of the higher mind and faith. Maybe even travel involved or upcoming travel or something like that. Then you also have on April 30th, a solar eclipse with Uranus in the 11th house, an awakening, a stirring, new life in the place of community, friends, groups, something that is awakening there. So I really like this kind of cooperation between faith and community for my Cancer risings. But friends, groups, communities, breaking the mold, things shifting around with regard to friends in your social life, allies, resources that you're finding that pair up somehow with this kind of renaissance happening in the house of the higher mind and religion and so forth. So really nice look for Cancer risings this month, that combination. Let's go forward to Leo rising. For Leo rising, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction on April 12th happens in your 8th house. Now, that is an interesting place because it was called the esteem of other people, which means what they have or what they give or how they judge or value you or things that you are in possession of, skills or resources that you have. So it's this house that has a long history of being intertwined with other people's values and other people's things. Jupiter-Neptune would suggest a tremendous resource or a tremendous asset or something like that that's coming into your life, maybe from someone else, for example, like an inheritance. It could be that you're paying off a debt. Oftentimes, Jupiter-Neptune will be some blessing that comes in surrounding something that you owe someone else and you're being released from that. And that could be karmic, psychological, financial. I like the idea of forgiveness of debts. I also like beautiful, unexpected, abundant blessings coming through other people, through connections to other people, a grant, a loan, someone investing in you, something like that. So I love this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in terms of the giving, or let's just say exchanging of valuable resources with people, meaningful connections. Could be creative, professional, romantic, but there's just this very fluid, beautiful looking exchange. Now, of course, the flip side is be careful what you sign up for. is there a devil's bargain in here somewhere that will entangle you in the future? It might look really nice. You might be getting something really nice, but there'll be a price to pay later. I would be careful of that kind of thing. But I wouldn't look, like I always say with the eighth house Jupiter, like don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Good things can come into your life, and it doesn't mean something bad will happen later. Now, the eclipse on April 30th in Taurus, new moon, solar eclipse, so planting that new seed in the career house with Uranus, trying to break the mold a little bit. So there's revolution taking place in your professional life this month as well. And you may not see that right like on April 30th, but from April 30th going forward over the next few months, don't be surprised if something new and exciting is developing around your career, especially with Uranus, who likes to create more freedom and space and innovation and break the mold, and a new moon solar eclipse, which also tends to bring about the beginning of a new chapter. So I like that for you in your career house if you're Leo rising. All right, let's take a look at Virgo on the ascendant. If you're a Virgo rising, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, along with Venus in her exaltation, are all taking place in your seventh house of love and relationships. So really, Virgo risings have such a romantic atmosphere. There's something here about love and being loved, about the saving power of relationships. I would be careful, of course, about losing yourself or sacrificing too much or playing savior to someone else or someone else to you, and any kind of codependency issues that could come up right now, getting lost or intoxicated in something. But generally speaking, this is a pretty very dreamy kind of sexual, romantic energy in the seventh house of love and relationships. And maybe inviting you to open up emotionally, spiritually, intimacy, exploring with someone else, and also the potential for important people to enter your life that uplift you in some way, whether it's a romantic partner or someone else. I love that for Virgo risings. I think that's one of the most exciting placements for Jupiter Neptune for all of the 12 signs. On April 30th, you'll have a solar eclipse in Taurus along with Uranus in your ninth house. Now, that is going to be the place of the higher mind, faith, religion, foreign countries, pursuit of truth. So with a solar eclipse in Uranus opening there, this is also a year of changing or shifting paradigms. It's as though your mind is changing, your beliefs are changing, you're exploring new ideas, or you're pursuing topics or studying something that is opening your mind and heart. Maybe there's an opportunity to travel or take a pilgrimage somewhere. But this is definitely a mind-spirit year where that pursuit of truth and breaking the mold and searching and probing for deeper answers is a part of the picture. A lot of ninth house emphasis starting April 30th with that eclipse, and then another eclipse on November 8th in that house as well. So watch for that to develop over the summer months, and maybe it pairs along with the feeling of someone, a figure, a person, a teacher entering your life, or romantic energy being more at a more of a peak. Remember, both of these are Venus signs. Taurus in the ninth, Venus's sign. Pisces in the seventh, Venus's exaltation. So there's a lot of that sensual, feminine goddess quality that is really presenting itself strongly from the spring onward in your chart this year. Okay, let's go forward to Libra rising. If you are a Libra rising, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is happening in your sixth house. And then we're going to have Venus co-present in that house as well. This is interesting because the sixth house is often described as a place of conflict and hostility, injuries, accidents, chronic illness, but also it's a place where we work very hard and often sacrifice, or we serve something bigger than ourselves, but often at great cost. It's not easy. There's a lot of effort that we put into the sixth house, like a medic on a battlefield. Here we have planets that are very redemptive, very soft and soothing, very romantic and hopeful. And so I wonder about peace or healing coming into wounded places or relationships. I wonder about the motif of the peacemaker and again, I think about maybe the downside being something like a martyr complex, the upside being something like the potential for really great, healing insight, whether it's body, mind, spirit, that you're receiving or giving to others somehow. And so that is the first transit on April 12th. The second one is the solar eclipse in your 8th house, which is happening on April 30th. So this one, new moon, conjoined with Uranus, total or partial solar eclipse. So you get that feeling of something new that's developing in a house that's associated with other people's resources, assets, esteem, what they think of you, what they give to you, what they require of you, or what you owe to other people. A lot of that kind of karmic exchange, karmic contracts that are all wrapped up in the 8th house. There's a new one that's being formed, or a new stage in life that is emerging after maybe breaking or escaping a former bond or a situation where you felt, something you had to break free of it. And now it's like a new chapter because the need to break out of a form of karmic or psychological bondage is present. This eclipse, in other words, could bring the escape or release from an old bond or agreement, or something like breaking a contract karmically, or finalizing or completing one, like a bill is done, paying off a credit card, or getting out of a relationship. This also has something to do with, I would say, asserting yourself and what makes you unique, regardless of what other people think. And also being clear about what you can and can't give to other people or expect from other people. Those things come to my mind for this eclipse on the 30th, which you may not see play out right away. Give it like May and June to be sure, just to see how because eclipses usually take a few moon cycles to really start to feel. All right, so we go forward to Scorpio on the ascendant. The Jupiter-Neptune conjunction will take place in your 5th house. And that is the place that was called the joy of Venus in the house of good fortune. I love this transit in terms of it being romantic. I could see a lot of Scorpio risings getting pregnant. This is a place of procreation. It's a place of children and pregnancy. Could there be that a child is accomplishing something, or that there's just a very sweet energy in the air around children, some kind of blessing coming around the topic of children and pregnancy? Could there also be something around creativity in the arts that's blossoming, sensuality and romance, joy and fun, even just taking a vacation and having fun, or prioritizing pleasure and romance? You could see that being important here. I like this house because this house is like a barometer. It says, look, if you're doing what is in your nature to do, there should be some happiness associated with it, some joy and some sense of creative fulfillment. And you can look at that 5th house Jupiter-Neptune conjunction and you can sort of say, look, if you're not in touch with that joy that should be a part of doing what you're good at, employing your skills and abilities and your heart and soul into things, this transit will put you back in touch with it potentially, or just remind you of the importance that there be joy and fun involved in being alive. So watch for that emphasis on pleasure, creativity, romance, children. It's very fertile energy there. Now, the solar eclipse will happen in your 7th house of love and relationships on April 30th. Solar eclipse with Uranus. Okay, if you're in a relationship and it's been on the rocks, this could be a solar eclipse with Uranus that suggests the need for freedom and to break the bond or to break up. On the other hand, if you're single, this could be the sign that you're ready to, kind of throw your hat into the ring and go out and date, or try a new relationship, or maybe date someone very different from the other people you've dated previously, to break the mold in relationships, to seek freedom in relationships, to seek something new and exciting and eccentric and Uranian in relationships, maybe sexually or romantically, spice things up in an existing relationship, have a breakthrough in a current or existing relationship. That's what the eclipse looks like, though. On April 30th, it'll be emphasizing that over the next few months as well. So let's go to Sagittarius rising. If you're a Sag rising, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction on April 12th is taking place in your 4th house, which is the place of home, family, roots, your living environment, land, and deep things, ancestral things, foundational things that have maybe deep depth and history behind them. Jupiter Neptune in this house to me could be a very mystical experience for Sag risings, emphasizing things like imagination, mysticism, because the fourth house being at the bottom of the chart was associated with mysterious things, including mystery schools in the ancient world. So could there be some connection to religion and mystical experience with this conjunction? I think that's a real possibility here, but also healing energy around family, around home and family karma. I see this as bringing some kind of uplifting or good news around the topic of family and home, whether you're starting a family or getting married or buying home or property, or even, going in with a group of friends to, I don't know, build something that you'll all share in together, something that brings people together around commonality, with a single vision or purpose that brings people together and is healing and imaginative and restorative. I like this energy around home and family. Of course, you do have to be careful of, kind of like the delusional, or what are the illusions that we have about our home and family? Where are we trying to see things clearly and differentiate between fantasy and reality when it comes to our home or family karma? Those might be questions as well. Now, the solar eclipse on April 30th lands in your sixth house in Taurus, along with Uranus. That's often going to mean that there is some new project, something that's going to require a lot of work or effort. I think of a new moon with Uranus in the sixth house, and I think of breaking ground, for example, when you're building a new house or something. Or I think about starting in on a new project that's going to require a lot of sacrifice, but you're very excited and motivated to do so. I think about a new workout routine that'll set you free but require hard work. Anything where there's an element of freedom but sacrifice and hard work all involved at once. Maybe also some themes of like defiance or trying to break the mold and struggling to do so. And that's what I'm seeing as a theme building from April 30th onward for Sages. Okay, so if you're a Capricorn rising, we are taking the Jupiter-Neptune dynamic and we're putting it in your third house on April 12th. Now, I think at this point, the chart has shifted to April 13th. So let me put it back just one day. There we go. So the third house was called Dia, or goddess, and is associated with our environment. So it's a very sort of nebulous house. When Jupiter-Neptune, along with an exalted Venus, comes into that house, I think about the state of mind that you might be in, the way that you could be receiving the gift of healing insights, grace, and flow in communication. If you're a writer or a speaker or a teacher or a media personality or a blogger, I could see this being a time where some really nice connections are being made, or networking is beneficial, or that you're in one of those fugue states where you're kind of downloading and transmitting things very fluidly. Think of things like stream of consciousness writing. Also, I think this is an energy that heals the mind. Capricorn risings carry the burden of Saturn, and Jupiter-Neptune might be, especially with Venus in that house, could be all about softening. So you think about energies that soften or quiet the busy or intense mindedness that sometimes a Capricorn might carry. I also think about the positive things that might be building around you. Is there some healing energy coming in to your environment? You're moving to live next to water. Or you found out news, the house of siblings, that a sibling is getting married or having a child. You're going to become an aunt or an uncle or something. So healing energy coming into the environment, expansive, exciting, artistic, imaginative, healing qualities kind of coming into the mind and having an impact around you, shifting you in subtle but pervasive ways throughout the month. That comes to my mind. I think this is an especially good time for there to be some new form of expression or something like that. Okay, then we have the solar eclipse in Taurus in your fifth house on April 30th. That is another place that is very creative. So the fifth house, called the joy of Venus, the house of good fortune, associated with creativity and the arts, and joy and pleasure overall, romance as well. Children as well. Could you be welcoming a child into your home? Solar eclipse in that sign. Could you be creating some new medium for artistic expression? Could there be some combining of mental and artistic abilities, making something that is both a statement, an articulation of ideas, but also something that's artistic. I also look at this in the 5th house and I say, look, there's some need for pleasure, for joy, for spontaneity, for a creative release, and that seeking expression from April 30th onward. It's just the kind of energy that I wouldn't be surprised to see coming up when people decide we're going to have a kid, we're going to start trying, as well as, someone saying, I need more creative expression, joy, freedom, and fun in my life. And how do I find that? Because maybe things are too tight or serious somehow. So those are some of the things I'm seeing for Caps. All right, if we go forward, we're putting Aquarius on the ascendant, and we are then looking at Jupiter-Neptune's conjunction in Pisces in your 2nd house, the house of money and finances and resources, along with an exalted Venus there. The only warning I have here is don't spend too much. Don't make an impulse buy or purchase that's just way too big or extravagant. There could be a little bit of, delusions and fantasies around how you should be using or spending your resources. You don't want to lose anything foolishly in that sense. But also, this could be a new revenue stream. This could be the growth of a new offering in your business. This could be something that comes in other words, just acts to bless or benefit or grow or expand your resources, which I think might be one of the most positive expressions of Jupiter-Neptune. Of course, it's all subjective, but Jupiter-Neptune, along with an exalted Venus in the 2nd house, that looks good for money and finances, as long as you're not getting grandiose or extravagant or sort of going over the top somehow with what is possible. Just stay grounded, and I think things are going to go really well. Now, at the same time, you have a solar eclipse in Taurus in your 4th house. On April 30th, along with Uranus. Could you be buying a new home, selling a home, paying off a mortgage, refinancing your home, adding an addition, building a porch or a deck, putting a hot tub in? So, it feels like an investment, and money are growing right alongside of something that's happening around home and property or family. Could it be that you're investing, or you're turning a room in the house, spending some money and turning a room in the house into, a nursery for a child that you're expecting or something like that. So there's revolution at the roots around home, family, property, and there's also this kind of very fertile energy coming in around money and finances collectively for you as an Aquarian. Really love that rising sign horoscope for this month. Looks pretty good. I'd love to hear your stories. Finally, Pisces rising. So Jupiter-Neptune happening in your 1st house. What's expanding? What's growing? Where is that big energy coming through? It's coming through you. It's coming through your sense of identity, character, and calling. This is, to me, the vision transit. If you're a Pisces rising, it's saying, I have a new vision. There's a new idea. There's a sense of I'm being motivated or inspired to do something, whether that's change your appearance somehow, or a diet or an exercise routine. It's probably physical or aesthetic, or it could be emotional. There could be some sense of releasing something that no longer serves you, feeling sort of renewed and refreshed, cleansed. The other idea that comes to my mind is that there's a restoral or renewal of confidence or faith or hope in something. Also, the feeling maybe of finishing or completing something that you've been working on. Starting something comes to mind, both at the same time, because Jupiter-Neptune in the 1st has the sense of relief and completion, but also maybe inspiration and starting something new. The feeling of this is the beginning of some new phase in my life. That all comes to mind, but hopeful and inspiring is the theme that I want to just repeat. Now, in terms of the eclipse, and by the way, I should say one more thing about this. If you are a Pisces, remember that you have had Saturn and Jupiter in your 12th house last year. And, in recent time, that's a heavy placement. So I also wonder, is this a year where you're just feeling like you're kind of you're getting back into you're hitting your stride again? I think that's the phrase I'm looking for. And the feeling of I'm back, I feel renewed or something like that. Also, more attention, leadership, people being more drawn to you somehow, or receiving personal accolades or promotion or benefit personally. That could also be there as well. feeling like a new you. Now, finally, the solar eclipse in Taurus is in your third house, along with Uranus. And to me, this is, if you see Jupiter and Neptune in the first giving this kind of personal refresh, then this is about the refreshing or resetting of your mind. There's something about the Uranus, the Uranian new moon and the partial solar eclipse there that suggests to me that there's a new way of thinking or communicating, or a new skill or ability, or a new way of expressing something that's coming into the environment to change how everyday things happen, or how everyday work is done, or that there's a new belief that you have, or something you've signed up for, something that you're learning, something that you want to articulate or express to other people. The feeling I get behind this could be, for example, that I'm putting myself out there somehow. With Jupiter, Neptune in the first, and with the Uranian eclipse in the third, I'm going to share something with other people, or I'm going to speak something, or write something, or learn and express a new skill, or something like that. Also, I think that this could be that you're making decisive changes to the environment around you to reflect someone new that you feel that you're becoming. And that would be in line with Jupiter, Neptune on the 12th, followed by the eclipse on the 30th. So that is what I have for this month. I think that, let's see here if I can get there we go. I think my camera is completely, there we go. So that is what we have for this month. And I'm really looking forward to this. I think April is easily one of the most exciting months of 2022. At the start of the year, when I began my research, I looked and I was like, okay, there are not many transits that compare to Jupiter, Neptune this year. What to speak of the fact that it's coming right before eclipse season. So I look forward to breaking down these transits more as the month goes on. I think there's a lot to unpack here. We'll be probably doing some more, maybe another run through the 12 signs with Jupiter, Neptune, and the eclipse again later, maybe a little bit more in depth. Maybe we'll even do a live cast for some of those. I think that might be fun. And as always, if you have stories you want to share, use the hashtag grabbed. Tell me which transit you're looking at. And share your story. We'll be telling some stories as the month goes on as well. All right, that's what I've got. I hope you guys have a great month of April, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.